studio engineers. I'm Joel from the Home Recording Network, and thank you so much for checking out my channel. If you are a Logic user and frequently edit drums, it is no secret that flex time can be a pain. It's known for chopping off the front end of your drum transients, making your cymbals sound unnatural, and sometimes it just seems to have a mind of its own. If you watched my last video on drum editing, I showed you an easier way to edit your drums that still kind of involved using flex time, but didn't involve you messing around with all the false transient markers that Logic adds. But what if we want to completely stop using flex time? Is that possible? Well, yes, it is, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. This editing technique will allow for tight, on the beat editing, but is in no way the fastest way to do this. It is, however, a way to get great drum edits without messing around with flex time and ruining the quality of your tracks. So if you want to completely get away from using flex time, strap in, pay attention, and practice using this method. Now let's hop into Logic and break this down for you. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if this video helps you out. All right, guys, so let's get into this. So I have some drums that have just been recorded here, not mixed or anything yet. But first we want to edit them right before we, record the bass and guitars and the rest of the instruments. So the first thing, and you should know this from my prior video on editing drums, obviously all the drums need to be grouped. So if you don't have your group set up, you're going to need to do that. And for my drum groups, open this up here. So I have editing and quantized locked, audio selected, track alternatives, automation mode, and obviously the record, because when I was recording this, I want, the tracks to all be armed for recording at the same time. So that's how your groups should be set up for editing, and we will get into this. Another thing to note is that to do this, your drummer does have to play to a click track or be at least close to the grid. And if your drummer has trouble playing to a click or is having a hard time with that, check out my other video on what to do when your drummer can't play to a click track. That should help you out a lot. Now, this is obviously going to be a lot easier if you have a spot on drummer. And the drummer I recorded is pretty good. So if we turn on the click here and take a listen, we can hear that he is pretty close to the click track. Yeah, so he's pretty close. So this shouldn't really be that difficult. It is possible to, properly edit a really sloppy drummer. It just takes a little bit more work and some more time. The first thing we're going to do here is change our drag mode to no overlap. So I'm usually in crossfade, but for this editing process, at least for now, we want to be in no overlap. Next, we're actually going to turn on flex time, but we're not actually going to be using it just for this initial part. So here we're going to actually select slicing and let Logic analyze all of that. And that's just going to take a second here. We'll wait for that to finish up. So there we go. Now we have all of our drums in slicing mode. And what we're going to do now is turn the cue off for any tracks we don't want to edit by. So for this song, I'm going to be editing using the kick and snare drum only. So I'm going to turn the cue off for every other track here. And there we go. Now we're only going to have transient markers on the kick in and the snare top track. Now you can use the toms. I've seen people even go as detailed as the hi-hat, but I usually just edit by the kick and the snare drum. If I need to work on the toms, I'll go in there and work on them. but usually I'll just edit by the kick and the snare. You may want to be more detailed than I am, but for this example, we're just going to stick with this. Next, what we're going to want to do is make sure we only have transient markers where the kick and snare are actually hit. So in order to do that, we're going to double click on the kick track, and that's going to pull up this little menu down here. And what we do is we go over to File here, and we can actually see all of the transient markers on this track. And you're going to see that there are markers where there aren't actually kick hits, like right here. If you're not seeing the transient markers in the file menu here, it's this little button right here. And this will actually bring them up. See, they go away if I click on it again. So make sure that's orange and you're seeing your transient markers. And now we can actually start to get rid of some of these false transient markers by hitting the minus sign up here. So let's go and do that and start to get rid of some of those false transient markers. And this isn't going to do 100% of the job. We're actually going to have to go in here and do a bit more work. So let's leave it about there. Now what I'm going to do is actually set my secondary tool to the eraser tool. So now if I hit Command, it turns into an eraser. And I'm going to hit my main tool to pencil tool. Now what I'm going to do is go through and check for any false transients that aren't actually kick hits, and also make sure that every kick hit does have a transient marker. So if we go through, we can start to see, so this is a little flam on the kick drum here. So these first two are actual kick hits, but this one after isn't. So I am going to, take my eraser tool, get rid of that. So now we can just keep going through, and you see right here, there should be a kick hit marker. So I'm going to use my pencil tool and put a little marker there. This one after the flam is not a kick hit. Keep going through. We got another one here. And we got one that should be right here. Very faint, but I know from hearing the song that that is a kick hit. Keep going through. Here is one that shouldn't be there. And you guys kind of get the idea. Maybe I'll spare you the rest of this and we will move on to snare. So I'll skip through the rest of this and I won't make you guys watch me go through this whole song. Okay, so I've gone through the whole kick track and all the transients are in there where they're supposed to be. One thing I wanted to point out with flex time is if we zoom in on some of these, we can see that some of these transient markers aren't really before the transient or at the beginning. If we zoom in here real close, we can see that this is actually, right after the initial transient, which is a big problem with flex time. That's why flex time sucks. If we were using flex time, this would actually chop off the beginning of that kick hit. But we're not going to be using flex time to edit, so we're going to kind of get around that. So next I'm going to go to the snare top. I'm going to click on that track. And we're going to go through and do the exact same thing with the snare drum. So I'm going to start off by just kind of removing some of the false transients with our minus symbol. Go here, start to get rid of some of those. And there we go. But now, again, I'm going to have to go through and start erasing some of these. So right here we have one. Right here we have one. And they're really all over the place. So again, I'll save you the boringness of watching this, and I'll come back when I'm done with the snare track. All right, so I am done with the snare. So now we should only have transients where the kick and the snare are actually hit. Now what we're going to do is right click up at the top here of the kick in track and go to slice at transient markers. So because our tracks are grouped, everything is going to be sliced here. So let's give that a shot. All right, that did take a minute or so, and I spared you guys that because it's slicing up all these regions here. So now we have a ton of regions here. Now what we could do is get out of flex time mode. We don't need that anymore. So now we're just working with these actual regions. All right, so now what I'm going to do is kind of take this, measure by measure, maybe a couple measures at a time, and really get some tight edits. So if I select just the first two measures here, it's going to select all the tracks because our tracks are grouped. And I'm going to go up to the top right and open this little menu here. And we can actually quantize from this menu. So it's going to only quantize the regions we have selected. So I'm going to select 16th note, and it's actually going to take a second and think here. And it has quantized our regions. So now we're still, we still have all these highlighted. You're going to see that there's some space now in between everything. But that's okay. So what we're going to do is zoom in here and add some padding before our kick hits here. And then what we're going to do is come up to the edit menu, and we're going to go to trim, and we're going to select trim region start to previous region. Okay, let's do that. Now that's filled up all the gaps, so there's no space in between any of our regions. And you're going to notice as I'm doing this, it does take some time after, you click the function because Logic has to think a little bit because we're dealing with a lot of regions here. And that's why you don't necessarily want to just quantize the whole song because that can take a long time. Logic has to do a lot of thinking. So now all of these should really be on beat here. Yeah, so everything is on beat right there, at least for the spots that we've actually edited. And you might notice some clicks and pops in the drum beat because we don't have anything crossfaded yet, and we're going to do that at the end. Yeah, so you might have some funny sounding, clicks or pops, but as long as everything is right on beat, you should be good. So now you're going to want to do the next two measures, right? Or however many measures you want to do at a time. And you're going to notice that the first beat here, the kick hit is kind of hidden. So we're just going to tuck that back. And then we're going to select the next two measures. And then again, we're going to open that little menu. And since we're already set to 16th note here, we can just hit the Q. And Logic is going to quantize those regions. There we go. Those have been quantized. And we can basically just follow the same workflow here. So we can first just add a little buffer to the beginning of the regions. And then we can use our trim function again. So trim region start to previous region. And then those tracks should be good, or those regions should be good. There you go. So now we can just follow that same workflow. And again, every first region after the regions you've edited might be a little wonky. So you can just pull that back to the start of the transient. But then we can just select our next two measures, open up our little menu, and then quantize those regions. Again, we're going to want to make a little room in before every kick hit here. So just pull the beginning of the regions forward a little bit, or back rather. creating a little bit of space in between there. That space right there. And then we can trim our region start to previous region. And we should be good. There we go. So I obviously don't want to bore you guys. So let me get through the rest of the song, and maybe I'll stop if there's anything that comes up that's kind of abnormal. Okay, so here we have a spot where a snare flam hit is kind of cut off. Right about there. So what we're going to want to do here is drag this region back a little bit, so that there's no, beginning of the snare hit on this other region to the left. And then we're also going to bring this guy back as well. So we're getting that transient. So now we got our 2 full transients there. It should sound a lot better. There we go. Here we have another instance of a little clipped off kick hit this time. So again, we're just going to want to pull this back a little bit and take a listen. There we go. Again, we have another bad edit here. So we have a little bit of that snare hit coming right before where it's actually supposed to be. So again, we're just going to pull this back. And this is another one of those flams. Pull that back, and then we'll pull this region back. So we can see the initial transient. And we'll take a listen. There we go, and that's great. All right, so now that we've tediously went through and put everything on the grid, at least our kick and our snares, what we're going to do is going to go and set our drag mode back to crossfade, just in case we want to do any crossfading later. And we're going to grab all the regions, and we're going to come to our little regions menu up here. And for type, we're going to select equal powers, and we're going to go at the beginning and end of each region and just put a 4 in there just for a little fade. And now we should be all set. We shouldn't have any clicks or pops when we're listening back, and everything should be really on the grid. Yeah, and everything is perfect. All right, once you have gone through and crossfaded everything, you're going to want to go through the song, listen back, make sure nothing sounds funny, make sure there's no clicks or pops in there. You can always come in here and zoom in and adjust any of these crossfades to your liking to make sure everything's sounding great. And once you're confident, you can just grab all the regions and hit J on the keyboard to join everything together. So we will be creating new audio files here. So make sure you're confident that all your edits are great. Hit create. Now we have just new tracks to work with. Everything has been joined together, so we don't have all those regions slowing down our project. And we have our edited drums. Now, the last thing I always do after I'm done editing is I do a file, save a copy as, and then I will name it the title of the song and then just say edited drums. That way we can always have our originals to go back to if for some reason we messed up editing or anything like that. But there you go. We're all set. This is a little bit more of a complex way to do this than my last video, but this doesn't really involve using flex time at all. And we all know that flex time can kind of have a mind of its own. During the process, sometimes you go in there and you come back to a project and you find that some things have changed, or maybe it sounds a little funky. Flex time is horrible. So this is one way. It's a little bit more tedious, but it's one way to edit without really using flex time at all. If you have any questions, hit me up. I'd be happy to help you out, but happy mixing, guys. Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to download your free Ultimate Home Studio Mix Guide with your go-to EQ and compression settings for all your tracks. And also be sure to register for my free online mix training that I hold a couple times a week so that you can learn how to make radio quality music from your home without breaking the bank.